alap can have a or a.
Right.
And what differentiates those two
Is a
sounds is a Zowaa. Exactly.
Oh.
So it moves the sound, moves the letter one way or another, and hence the word Zowaa.
Hi friends, this is Steve and welcome to episode 47 of the Assyrian Podcast. As an Assyrian, I've heard of this group called Zowaa or the Assyrian Democratic Movement a number of times throughout my life, but I never really understood who they were or why they existed. Well, last year I was at the Assyrian National Policy Conference in Washington, D.C., and that's when I was introduced to Alexander David. Alex has been an active member of the Assyrian Democratic Movement, Zowaa, since 2009. Currently, he's the Illinois Sector Director of the movement, and I had the pleasure of learning about him and the movement to share with you all. This is one of those episodes that reminds me of the diverse richness within the Assyrian culture. There are real leaders, and it is refreshing to watch them carry out their commitments with integrity and passion. Now, before we air this episode, I have a couple of announcements. Last week, the Assyrian Podcast went over 25,000 downloads. That is so exciting, and we never thought when we started this thing that it would gain the kind of life it's gaining among the Assyrian community and beyond. It goes to show you how many of you really care about your heritage, and also shows how beautiful and alluring our culture really is. And with that being said, the second big announcement is that our big episode 50 is coming up in just a few weeks. Episode 50 marks a huge milestone for us, and we'd love to hear directly from you, our audience. We'd love for you to leave a voicemail or message telling us your name, location, your favorite episode, and why. We'll be randomly selecting messages to air as a part of that episode. Also, feel free to email us your thoughts and we can read them aloud. If you want to call, dial 415-349-3845 and leave us a message or email us at info@assyrianpodcast.com. The Assyrian Podcast is brought to you by Tony Kalogerakos and the injury lawyers of Illinois and New York. If you know anyone that has been in a serious accident, please reach out to Tony Kalogerakos. Tony has been recognized as a top 40 lawyer and a rising star by Super Lawyers publication and has obtained multiple multi-million-dollar awards. Tony can be reached at injuryrights.com or 847-982-9516. And now, here is Alexander David. Alex is a born and bred Chicago Assyrian.
Yes, I am. Proud of it, too.
Chicago Assyrians really have their own personality. I mean, you guys are known.
I hope in a good way.
Yeah.
I truly hope in a good way. I mean, I think Chicago is just well known for being a little bit of a tough city. But I hope as Assyrians, we're good to our nation. That's the most important thing, to me at least, as an Assyrian Chicagoan per se.
Assyrians in Chicago have represented Assyrians as well as anyone.
From an insider, it's kind of hard to know what it's like. So from the outside looking in, I'm glad to hear those words.
So what was it like growing up in Chicago as an Assyrian?
Actually, I was always within a community, within the Assyrian community. So I've never not been around Assyrians. You know, in the neighborhood I grew up in, the schools that I went to, relatives were always very close, you know. So everything was very, very close in terms of the community, you know. I could just walk out the street and I could see an Assyrian, basically. You know, walk down the street and you'll see an Assyrian. That's how close-knit of a community we used to be. After so many years, Assyrians started moving away into the suburbs. So they started spreading across the Chicagoland area and into the northern suburbs. So as time went on, it was harder to see Assyrians as regularly as I used to.
Yeah. And nowadays, you're still living in Chicago?
I still live in Chicago, yeah, absolutely. I haven't moved. I've been in the same area pretty much all my life.
Oh, wow. And then you're married with 2 kids?
No kids yet. Yeah, married about a year and a half now.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So you grew up in Chicago, and then for college, you ended up getting an accounting degree?
Correct. I got my undergrad in accountancy, yes.
And what made you decide to choose that?
I felt that accounting covers more than finance, and I knew I was going to actually practice finance. But I figured if I got an undergrad in accounting, it would be easier to land a job in accounting or finance. But if you got an undergrad in finance, it wouldn't be as easy to land a job in accounting or finance. So it gave you the broader perspective of basically jumping into any pool you wanted to, versus finance undergrad only limited you to a financial, practical workplace. Basically.
Exactly. And have you found success in finance and accounting?
Thank God, yeah. I've been successfully employed for the last, I want to say, 18 years of my 36-year-old life. So.
Nice, awesome. So, can you tell us a little more about what you do, kind of on the day to day?
Professionally?
Yeah.
Professionally, I'm the director of business management and finance for AT&T, which is, I think, a very well-known company.
Oh yeah.
Been with them coming up on 9 years now, almost 10. And it's been a great company, but I sort of manage about a $2 billion portfolio for them, a business segment called network integration. So it's been a great experience working for them. Had a good time. Great company to work for. I don't see myself leaving, to be honest with you. So it's something that I expect to be there. I expect to be there for until I retire. So it has that longevity kind of company.
Good for you.
I see people retiring their 40, 50 years of service. So it's a good place to be at.
And is it okay to put on the radio that you do $2 billion and all that?
It's public. It's on our financials, so it's completely it's public information. We're a publicly traded company, so the SEC knows exactly what we're doing.
Yeah.
So does the IRS. So they know what network integration does at this point. So once you break down the financials in terms of like our 10K and whatnot, you'll see all that information. It's public information.
Yeah. So you're well entrenched in that world, and I'm assuming you love that world. You're committed to that world, but then you've got this other side to you. You are the director of the Illinois sector of the Assyrian Democratic Movement, also known as Zowaa. And that's completely different, right, than what you do from your day-to-day finance and all that kind of stuff.
Completely different, yeah. It's an entire different world. I do finance because of the financial position it puts me in. I work for my nation because of the passion that I have for it. So completely different types of reasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a whole different world as well.
So for those of us that maybe aren't as familiar, tell us, like, the Assyrian Democratic Movement. What's it all about? And then we want to know, how did you get involved with it?
Well, the Assyrian Democratic Movement is a political organization. It's a movement. So it has an ideology. It has principles that started in the late 70s. Officially, on the books, it says April 12th, 1979, but it started in terms of the progression of it a couple of years prior to that. So nobody exactly knows what date, but the date is April 12th, 1979 in terms of where it started. And it started as a patriotic, as a nationalistic, and a political movement. So those three components. And it was the first of its kind. And it was heavily against the regime at the time, the Ba'ath regime, the Saddam Hussein regime. And as time went on, the members at the time, the founders, proved to show a lot of resilience against the government, to a point where even sacrificing themselves and giving martyrs for our nation. And most people know the founding martyrs, who were Yubert, Yosef, and Yuhanna, but there were martyrs prior to that and martyrs after that. And I think after 84 and 85, when we basically they went to martyrdom. That was when that echoed into diaspora. Now, mind you, in the 80s, we didn't have technology as we do right now. So it was all through word of mouth and through sending people back and forth of, delivering the message in terms of what's going on in Iraq. And once that echoed into diaspora, I think generally most of our nation started supporting the ADM, started supporting Zowaa. And that's where Zowaa grew really strong and started really mobilizing its people. And in 85, actually, in 86, it's 85 and 86, in those years, they started going up into the mountains, actually, and alongside various other oppositions to the government, fought against the government of the Iraq at the time, of the Iraq government, which was led by Saddam Hussein, obviously.
So the mountains became sort of a safe place or a hiding place?
It became Mkhirul Tora, as they say. They went into the mountains to oppose the government, and it was harder for the government to reach them there.
They were more familiar with the terrain.
Absolutely, more familiar with the terrain and more coverage. It was harder for them. It was harder for the government to reach them.
It's like true guerrilla warfare.
Absolutely, and that's what really sparked the movement was that armed struggle, and we have a name for it. It's called Duraram Zaina. So the martyrs, along with that armed struggle of us actually making that move into the mountains to fight against the government, is what really made Zowaa what it was. That really true, strong, patriotic, nationalistic political movement.
And this was a response to the violent oppression that they were facing from the Ba'ath regime, who wanted to Arabize that whole area. And what we have is, in the middle of all that, we have a resistance movement, small ethnic minority group, the Assyrian people, and the ADM is found. So that's actually really awesome to know that it's birthed out of resistance, to fight back and to say, you know what, we're not going to be treated this way.
Absolutely. It was even recognized in 2003 by the George Bush administration as an opposition force by the U.S. government, officially recognized. And I still have the documents to prove that statement, where that administration recognized us as an opposition force. So the
Which they valued because they were at war with the Saddam Hussein regime.
Absolutely, yeah. We helped with intel, with just that force against the government at the time, yeah, to help relieve us of oppression.
And you are the director of the Illinois chapter. So why do they have? You said that it came out to the diaspora. So what had happened was they needed support or wanted to get the word across the world?
Well, in the 90s, what happened was they created chapters in diaspora. They sent people out of Iraq, a couple people. They sent them out to sort of spread the word. And in the spreading of the word, they created administrations in diaspora. In Chicago was the first place they created a cell or a chapter. And now there's, I think, over 11 chapters 11 sectors across the world. And they act as veins to the heart, basically. And we pump support both financially and also morally, in terms of votes or support or even mobilization of our people, like in D.C. and other places.
How did they get the name Assyrian Democratic Movement? Like, what is that representing? What is that saying?
The word Zowaa actually means movement. It comes in terms of the alphabets. So Zowaa are, ska, pa, ptacha, it moves the letters, right? So this is the Assyrian Democratic Movement, Zowaa Demokrataya Aturaya. So we move democracy, we move the nation, and that was the intention of the word Zowaa. It means movement. So that's where the word comes from. Yeah, and the way our alphabets are, Alap can have a or a.
Right.
And what differentiates those two sounds is a Zowaa. Exactly.
Oh.
So it moves the sound, moves the letter one way or another, and hence the word Zowaa. It's a movement.
It's this fluid movement that is helping guide the nation.
Absolutely.
Especially in the midst of oppression.
Absolutely.
And it has to move in that specific manner with that sort of subtlety. It's got a subtle move, right? Because the difference in those two sounds is subtle.
It is very subtle, absolutely. But it does move it, though.
Exactly.
So it is subtle, but it's been around for 39 years as of now, and we've had our ups and downs, just like anything has. But something that we've continuously done is we've continuously worked. Mm-hmm. We've never stopped working for this nation. Again, we've had successes, we've had failures, but we've always learned from our mistakes, and we will continue, I think, making those mistakes, and we will continue to have these successes. And that's just a movement. But it's the only way you're gonna have a problem is if you're moving, right? If I'm sitting at home doing nothing, I will not make a mistake, will I? Because I'm not doing anything to make a mistake.
Right.
Right? But that's the thing. So in that process of actually working, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to have successes, and I think the movement has had both.
So going back to your story, though, you born and bred in Chicago, but here you are, the director of the ADM that is really helping people in Iraq. Where did that kind of passion for you come from?
I never thought I would ever be the director of the movement. In 2007, all I wanted to do was just work for my nation. And I wasn't sure where. And I started helping out with some local demonstrations that were going on in Chicago, and that's as far as it got for a year. I was just sort of getting involved little by little until I ran across Zowaa. And I realized that I want to get involved in a political capacity and / nationalistic capacity. And I never intended ever on being the director of the movement. I just wanted to work. And I still consider myself a servant of this nation. And as long as I'm working for this nation, no matter what my title is, I'm going to be a servant of this nation. And that's all I do is serve my nation. Because I don't get paid for this, and I don't expect to get paid. My compensation is the success of my people, is the progression of my nation. That's how I get paid, is to see my nation progress. That's how I get paid. That's what makes me feel good. It's not like my other job, as we were talking about earlier, right? There's a compensation. There's a monetary value of reimbursement. In this case, it's not. It's seeing Khirut Nashi, seeing my people's liberation, seeing me get somewhere, right? I need my people to remain where they should be, which is my ancestral homeland, my roots, which is in Iraq, specifically the northern Iraq area.
So, with that being said, what's going on with Zowaa today, and what do you feel comfortable sharing in regards to that?
Well, given all the things that have happened, you see, Zowaa's had a lot of adversaries, a lot within our community and also foreign, right? But I think our biggest hurdle has been internal. I don't think people have understood Zowaa. And for a lot of tribal reasons and otherwise, some people have actually turned their back against Zowaa because they think that Zowaa associates to a certain tribe or a certain religion, which is not the case. Zowaa has all sorts of religion denominations. It has all sorts of tribes. It's not limited to only one. And I think people have always mistook that, and it has caused Zowaa to sort of have a bad rep in the past. And that's never been the case. But I think through so many things that have occurred as time sort of progresses and we sort of get a better understanding of what Zowaa truly is where more people are coming out to support it. Today, we're sort of at a crossroads right now, as a nation and as a movement, but more importantly as a nation, because the nation always comes first. People always think that, no, we put Zowaa first. No, we don't put Zowaa first. We put the nation first, but we work our path as the ADM. That's our path. But I work for my nation before I work for anything.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, then there have been times where it's been perceived that the movement has cared more about keeping itself intact than it has keeping the nation going forward.
Falsely, yeah.
Yeah, so people have fundamentally disagreed with a specific direction and said, oh, they must only care about themselves.
Correct. And we've heard that many times where people always say, well, you always put Zowaa first before the nation. Well, that's not true. Specifically when it comes to our symbol. A lot of people say, well, why do you have the Zowaa symbol? Why do you bring it to parades and to events? Why not the Assyrian flag? Well, the Assyrian flag is my flag, but Zowaa is my symbol. And I'll give you a very good explanation as to why. Our neighbors in the north, the KRG, they can't, specifically the
What does KRG stand for?
The Kurdish Regional Government. But specifically the KDP, right? They can tolerate the Assyrian flag, but the Zowaa symbol is a sign of protest to them. They can't tolerate the Zowaa symbol. So we take pride in the fact that we are a thorn in their eye, right? Even to our neighbors who oppress us, who steal our lands, who confiscate our lands, who encroach our lands, who oppress us till this day, I will remain a thorn in their eye. And that's what makes me proud to be a Zowaa member, right? Is that I will remain, and I have an opposition. That's my opposer. And I'm going to sort of stand up to their face and prove to them. But again, as an Assyrian, Kurds accept Assyrians. They really do. In some certain cases, they actually buy Assyrians. There are Kurdish proxy organizations under the Assyrian name. Now, I'm not going to name them, but I'm sure people know who they are.
I don't understand that very well. So what you're telling me is that that the Kurdistan government appreciates Assyrians and will vote for Assyrians as long as, help me understand what you're getting at when you say that.
Okay, let me rewind a little bit. So, in 2010, well, a little bit before that, the KRG wanted to marginalize the ADM and sort of suppress our voice, suppress our strength.
So the ADM represents Assyrian leadership, Assyrians sitting at the table, whereas Assyrians in and of themselves don't really have any other way of vocalizing.
The ADM represents the Free Assyrian.
Okay. Not just the Assyrian who will do whatever the Kurdistan government wants them to do.
Correct. We and people always ask us this question. They say, well, why don't you work with the Kurds? Mm-hmm. Well, I will work with the Kurds, as I'll work with the Arabs. I have to. I'm in that region. But I won't work for the Kurds. Working with somebody is very different than working for somebody. Unfortunately, there are Assyrian organizations that are Kurdish proxies, and they work for the Kurds. Does that make sense?
If you can't beat them, join them.
Absolutely. So, unfortunately, we won't join them.
But is there ever a time of compromise?
Oh, it's politics. There's always there. That's what we have to understand is we're working in politics, right? There has to be some give and take, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to compromise my principles. My principles they're not for sale, right? So I'll compromise on certain negotiating points, in terms of specifically lawful points, in terms of what I can gain for my people and whatnot. But in terms of principles, I will not sacrifice those whatsoever, and I don't think any ADM member will.
So ADM is less about it's less about free flowing with everyone, and it's more about making sure we hold ourselves to a certain standard.
Absolutely. It's not. I don't have to always sesgidden, or agree with my brethren just because he's my brethren. As a matter of fact, I'm as guilty if I don't call him out.
But if there's a compromise that will help the nation, then it's not so far as to say, you know what, hey, we can let go of this one thing because we want to help move forward.
As long as it's not compromising my principles, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, do you feel like the ADM has been effective in everything they're trying to do?
Like I said earlier, we've had our successes and we've had our failures, but I think we've been very effective. And I think our failures have come because of the fact that people don't understand what we're trying to do, and they don't understand the situation that we're in terms of how much opposition we have. Especially in terms of what's recently happening as of today. You got the North, who's the Kurds who are trying to steal your voice, and now you have the South, right, who, as we see as of recent elections, are trying to steal your voice, and then in front of you have your own people who are sort of trying to suppress you and sort of knock you down for the wrong reasons, and I think that's what's caused us to sort of have failures.
Yeah. So going back to the recent elections, you mentioned the recent elections. What happened in the recent elections?
Well, they're still pending as of right now, so probably by the time this gets broadcasted, we might know what the results are. But what happened in the recent elections, and it's very simple. It's in 2010, we ran in the elections and we acquired 3 seats.
Of how many?
Of 5. And the reason why I say 5 is that the Iraqi parliament has 329 total seats. They allot 5 for the Christian minorities. Okay.
Seems like a small number.
It is, but it's based off population size, right? Okay. So it's in comparable to how many people you have living in the country. So
of the 329 seats,
5 belong to us.
To Assyrians?
To Christians.
Okay,
to
Christians, which encompasses the Yazidis, or no?
The Yazidis have their
It
own
encompasses
quotas.
the
Chaldean, Syriac, Assyrians. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so that's not very many. I mean, that is a decent number then, with that being said.
It's arguable.
Okay.
It's arguable. Some can say no, we need more because of the oppression we've had, of the fact that our people have been pushed out of there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So exactly. So in other words, in terms of historical place, Assyrians should have a lot more numbers, and they've left because they've been pushed out. Sure.
Exactly. So that number is not enough. But again, it's arguably to say if it's 5 is okay or not. But 5 was what they agreed on.
Now, in 2010, we received 3 of the 5 votes. Now, when you say we, do you mean like the Assyrian Democratic Movement?
I mean the Assyrian Democratic Movement. Zowaa received 3 of the 5. Correct.
So that means that after Saddam was removed, that the ADM was really the voice and the powerful voice of the nation to be able to receive the majority vote.
Well, yeah. In 2003, Rabbi Adam Khanna was he was the signer on the Declaration of Independence, I guess, for Iraq, and he was appointed by the Bremer administration when they came to sort of, I guess, westernize Iraq.
Right.
In terms of, I think it was a failure. But they still attempted to westernize the country in terms of its new democratic processes, which, again, I don't think it could happen in 1 or even 2 generations to sort of to provide democracy to a country that's always been dictated on for so many years. Mm-hmm. But Rabbi Adam Khanna was actually, he was appointed by the Bremer administration. And then ever since then, we've been in government. We've been, we've had
you
representation.
had a seat at the table.
Correct. And then in 2010 was where real opposition approached us, where we saw an organization come out of nowhere, claiming that it's Assyrian, Chaldean, Syriac. Yet we know that it's got badge-carrying KDP members as its representatives. And we realized that they were even receiving votes from areas that Assyrians didn't even exist, like Sulaimaniya at the time. They were getting 5,000-6,000 votes from areas where there weren't even more than 20 or 30 families living in there. So what happened was the Kurds found a way to manipulate the quota system by creating proxy organizations and obtaining more seats that way. And that's in 2010, and then again in 2014, and then obviously it was completely, blatantly obvious in 2018.
So it's a slow process of impersonating in order to gain the seat.
Absolutely. It's unfortunate, but I'm just going to give a small example. In 2010, there was there's just over 50,000 voters for the quota. Just over 50,000 voters for the quota. And in 2010, it had a 72% turnout ratio. Okay, so 72% of Iraqis voted, and for the Assyrian quota, there was 50,000 votes. Fast forward to 2018, voter turnout had decreased to 44%. Yet the Christian quota went up to 109,000 votes. Are you telling me that Christians have reverse migrated without even me knowing? So how is it possible that those votes increased when I know that there has been less of my people living in that country compared to 2010? More have escaped, more have left, more have fled. So how is it possible that number has been increasing? Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. So how is it possible?
Well, again, now not only did the Kurds find Kurds know that loophole, but now even Shia Arabs found that loophole as well.
Okay. So the rest of the groups caught on.
They
and
caught on.
The Zowaa wasn't able to catch on.
Well, no. What can we do? We've actually, in January of 2018, Imad Yukhanna, who's one of the 2 representatives that we currently have as of this moment in the parliament.
Right.
He actually asked that for the quota there needs to be a separate box for only Christians. That means when you actually vote, only a Christian can vote for that box. And then about a month or 2 later, IHEC provided an answer saying we can't do that. They cannot go ahead and provide a box for sectarian reasons.
This to me feels it's like a classic trick. So what's the deal? If what you're saying is true, how has nobody gotten on top of it? Does the U.S. play a role in organizing these elections in any way?
I don't think so. We've informed the U.S. about these issues, about voter manipulation and manipulating the system and sort of stealing my votes. They know about it, but we are such a minor issue to them. And this is the problem, that we have not held the U.S. government accountable. They should be held accountable for what has happened for my people. In terms of actually, going in there under the wrong impression of weapons of mass destruction, all right, and removing a dictator without replacing the system with a proper system. Fine, get rid of the dictator. That's exactly what we all want. But at least provide us a system that works, not a broken system. Because that system is broken, and it's been broken for the last 15 or 16 years, right? It hasn't been corrected ever since the fall of Saddam. Doesn't mean that the system is correct. The system isn't working properly, and we can see that happening till this day. The system is it's irreparable as of right now. But I'm hoping that in the future that the U.S. government does something to help us, absolutely, because they are to be held accountable for what has happened to my people.
But when those votes change and these proxy people put in power, then it means more and more Assyrians and more Christians in the Middle East, they're going to be gone, right? Because it means they're losing power.
You're marginalizing our people, absolutely. And here's the thing. It's like there's 329 seats left. There's 329 total seats.
And they're doing this for those 5 seats.
Yeah, I mean, is it really that important that you get my 5 seats as well?
Well, then why? Why is it that important?
It must be, because I guess 1 or 2 votes in Parliament can swing things one way or another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing just this depth of wisdom and background for the Zowaa movement. And it's sad to hear these results. Do you see any glimmer of hope for the Assyrians in Iraq and for the Zowaa movement?
Absolutely. I don't think I would continue doing what I'm doing if I didn't see any hope.
Yeah. And I guess let me rephrase that question. What are the bright spots you see moving forward for the Assyrian people in Iraq and Zowaa movement?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, you always have to have a voice. So political representation is really critical. Mm-hmm. But I'll be the first to say Zowaa wasn't built on seats. We sat on the floor for a good term of our life, basically.
Right, because you didn't get the seats until 2003.
Exactly, meaning we were in the mountains.
So you're ready to go back to the mountains if you have to.
I think we should be, absolutely, and that's the thing. We're not here for seats. We're acquiring those seats because our nation demands us to. Our nation demands us to represent it, right? And we believe that through the political system, even though it's a broken one, we can fix that system. Or once it's ready to actually work properly, that we are there representing our people. But Zowaa is an ideology. It's a way of thinking, right? So it's never going to go away. We always say, a martyr never dies. As long as his ideology is still being pressed forward, he lives forever. And same thing with Zowaa. I think Zowaa is a way of thinking. You're always going to be around, right? And today, let's say even if we have 1 seat or 2 seats or whatever it may be, we're always going to continue fighting for our nation. And obviously the next steps are it's a province that we're looking for in the Nineveh Plains, where we can self-administer ourselves in accordance to the Constitution of Iraq under Article 125, which is what we've always pushed for and what we're continuing to push for since 2005. So absolutely, I don't think this is just a bump in the road, nothing more. Some people are making a bigger deal out of it, thinking, oh, well, Zowaa lost its seats, Zowaa lost its power. Our power isn't in our seats. It's in our thoughts. It's in the way we do things, right? It's in our strategy, right? It's in our ideology. That's where Zowaa's power is. And it's in our supporters. A lot of people say, well, if it's in your supporters, why couldn't you get enough votes in diaspora? Well, IHEC made it so. IHEC is the Independent High Electoral Commission. Made it so challenging for our diaspora voters to come out and vote. They made it on a Thursday and a Friday, and the voting times were from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., where everyone's working. I mean, our people already have a tough time coming out when it's easy. So imagine when it's even harder to
The
come.
diaspora vote counts?
Yeah. Oh,
Help
not
us
not all of
understand
them.
that.
Okay. So
Because I saw people voting in Canada and Chicago, and those votes impact the elections in Iraq?
absolutely, yeah. Well, again, according to Article 18 and 20 of the Constitution, and I could be wrong, but I think it's 18 and 20, it allows people who were natural-born Iraqis who even live outside to actually cast a vote. And this was something that was decided from the beginning of the new Constitution, that allows these people. Because again, even my parents, if there wasn't Christian oppression or minority oppression, chances are I would be an Iraqi. My parents would be living peacefully in their home country, right, in their homeland, and I would be an Iraqi. I wouldn't be born here. They wouldn't have migrated out of Iraq, correct? So because of that regime that existed for so long and oppressed the people of that nation, they allowed out-of-country voting because there were so many Iraqis living abroad. So that allowed places where there's Iraqi population, Iraqi communities to vote. Chicago being one of them, Michigan another one, Arizona, California, Canada, at least in the U.S., and then so on, like Australia and parts of Europe as well.
So they actually took responsibility to a degree for what's happened.
Well, IHEC did to some extent to allow these voices to be heard. And I put that very delicately because that's not the case. And I don't think, even though they're saying it, they're trying to make it seem like, oh, my voice is important in diaspora, but they don't make it that easy. They make it even more difficult for me. So if that's the case, why are you even bothering with me? Why do you just remove that from the law? Just amend the law.
How many Assyrians that left Iraq that are in diaspora can currently vote to impact? Do you have that number?
Well, I mean, if we take the whole Assyrian Chaldean Syriac community, and we can range that number for anywhere between 2.5 million to 3 million, or let's just leave it at 2 million, just to have a nice consistent number. Let's say there's 2 million, and we claim that there's about 300,000 living in Iraq, meaning there's about 1.7 million of our people living in diaspora, which are now that's just Iraqis, right? That's all of Assyrians. That's not all Iraqis. Let's just say, I don't know, maybe half of them are Iraqis. There's a large number of Iraqis living in diaspora. I don't know the exact number, but there's a large number of them that are living out there. That, however, they just need the necessary documentation to prove that they're Iraqis in order to vote. And again, according to those articles that I mentioned, Article 18, Article 20, even the son of an Iraqi born or a daughter of an Iraqi born has the right to vote.
Now, were you able to vote?
I was. Unfortunately, my vote it was rejected.
Why?
Documentation reasons. They said even my parents were rejected this time, but my parents were accepted in 2014. They were accepted in 2010. This time they were rejected.
So they don't make it easy.
They've made it difficult every year every term that has come. They've made it more and more difficult. Yeah.
And that's why when you tell me about Zowaa, there is this backbone of, you know what? First and foremost, we're going to hold our ground. First and foremost, we're going to look out for what we're trying to do.
Absolutely. And you mentioned holding your ground literally. And I like to look at that as a literal perspective in terms of holding our ground. Because a lot of people ask me, they say, well, why are you messing with the homeland? We've already lost Iraq. Well, no, I don't think we've lost Iraq. I think if we lose Iraq, it's going to be bad for our nation because of the fact that we're going to lose our culture. We're going to assimilate. We're going to just melt.
Will it be bad for Iraq?
I think it will as well, yeah, because of the culture, right? It's good to have culture, diversification. Diversity is good. And Iraq used to pride itself on diversity, right? Having many different cultures and traditions and different nationalities living in this country called Iraq. To take that away, would be actually very negative for the country, I think.
Agreed. So this has been just such a pleasure, and it's so informative to learn more about you, to learn more about your role, and to learn more about what's happening in Iraq. I know that we here in the States, we don't know these things. It's not like any of our news outlets, this is their main focus, to report how all this stuff works. And you really gave us a behind the scenes picture, so we really appreciate that. One thing I like to ask people who are on the Assyrian podcast is, if you could say one thing to Assyrians all around the world who listen to the podcast, what would you say to them? And now is your chance.
I would tell my people to never give up. Don't ever give up on what belongs to you, right? It's our right to be Assyrian. Be proud of who you are. Love who you are. Have that passion for your people. Because if I don't love my people, who will? Who's gonna mind my people? Who's gonna take care of my people? I have to take care of my own people before anyone else does. So I always urge every Assyrian to come forward and do what's necessary for its nation.
Amen. Love it. Well, thank you so much for being on the Assyrian podcast. It was a blast. Thanks for taking the time.
Well, I want to thank you, and I want to thank all the listeners, honestly. My nation is my pride, honest to God. It's the pride of what I do. So I love my people, I love my nation, and I wish us as much success as possible.
We're going to include all of your contact information that you wanted to share in the show notes. And so look him up on Facebook, Alexander David. And is that
unfortunately, I don't have Facebook.
Oh, good for you. Good for you. Where could they connect with you on social media?
I do have a Twitter and I do have an Instagram. And they can contact me through ADM Illinois. I have a media team that will send any information my way.
So reach out, ADM Illinois, and get to know Zowaa and get to know Alexander David and all the work that he's doing. So thanks so much, Alex.
Thank you, sir.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to this episode of the Assyrian Podcast. If you like what you are hearing, please subscribe and review us wherever you listen to us. Spread the word about the Assyrian Podcast. It has been so much fun to grow this podcast alongside you, our listeners, from all around the world. Thank you for making the Assyrian Podcast what it is. And remember, dial 415-349-3845. Again, that's 415-349-3845. And leave us a message or email us at info@assyrianpodcast.com with your name, location, your favorite episode, and why. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next time.